All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this morning. Just a couple notes for after the session. If you would like credit for the Academy, the sign-in sheet is over here in the corner by the water. Also, the evaluation form is located on the app. If you'd prefer a paper form, just see myself or Greg afterwards and we can set you up with that. And then don't forget to join us tonight in the Sage Springs Pavilion for the awards banquet. And with that, we'll get started. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Frank Stratton, Executive Director for SDAO. Thank you for being here this morning. Also have speaking to you today is Cole Carr. Cole is from the National Special Districts Association. He's our Federal Advocacy Director. And then also Chief Darren Busich from McKenzie Fire District. Darren is actually going to talk about giving you some real life examples of the things that Cole and I are going to be talking about. And Darren's going to tell you how to put that into practice from his own real perspective. First of all, I apologize if you've heard this session before and you're thinking you're going to hear something new, because a lot of it's going to be repeat, because I want to keep beating this drum over and over again until we start to see some change. So anyway, so first we're going to talk about what's the problem with not having enough legislative outreach, how to reach out to your Oregon legislators, and then reaching out to your congressional representatives. So first problem, what the heck is a special district? And I mentioned this in my opening remarks. How many of you in the room think that people in your community, for the most part, or the majority of people, know what you are and what you do? How many people? Well, there's not a whole lot. There's one hand. That's great. Two. How many people think that you're part of a city? A whole lot of hands. Your city department, right? Or you're part of the county. Well, that's definitely the prevalent conception out there, not just to the public, but that's what your legislators think for the most part. That's what your congressional representatives think. That's what state employees think that oversee a lot of the agencies that you deal with. They don't understand what you are. And that we found that that's created some real problems. So misconceptions. Yes, they think that you're part of a city or county. They also think that you're subservient to a city or county. So they think that you report to them. So we get calls literally almost every day at SDAO from people saying, I need something done about this district. And I've tried talking to the city, and I've tried talking to the county, and they say that there's nothing they can do, and I don't understand that. How can that be, right? They think that you report to somebody and that they have authority over you. They don't realize that you're on an equal footing as far as your powers and authorizations go. They think that you get a lot of your funding from the city, and the state. So cities, as you know, get a lot of shared revenue. Special districts get none. I'll give you a great example of what a problem this is as far as misunderstanding. There's a bill before the legislature right now that's going to essentially freeze property taxes for developments to build middle income housing, like apartment complexes, houses, et cetera. A noble effort, but part of that strategy is to freeze those property taxes for 10 years so that the local governments don't get any of that revenue, property tax revenue. And so the first meeting that Mark Landauer and I had with the representative and with the consultants that have been working on this the last couple of years, they said, this is no big deal because the local governments are going to benefit heavily right away from these developments because they'll get systems development charges. They'll get the franchise fees. They're going to get the utility fees on this. And we had to say, what? Stop. That's not how it works. Special districts, especially those that provide property tax or rely on property taxes like the fire districts, Parks and Rec, library, et cetera, that's what they get. It's property taxes. And they were just blown away by that. They couldn't understand it. So we said, well, so really you expect a fire district to provide services to a 300 unit complex for 10 years for free with no additional staff, no additional funding. at a unit that size are probably making a call there at least once a day. And they're just like, wow, we never thought about this. Luckily, those conversations have started to get people thinking. I'm not sure if we'll be successful in fighting this or not, but that's the level of knowledge they just don't understand. And these are very knowledgeable people. In fact, one person, he introduced himself as a special district expert from this consulting firm. And he said, well, no, I don't understand the problem here, because as soon as these units are developed, they're going to immediately be annexed by the city. So, well, well, for one, no, that doesn't happen, because people don't want to annex to a city if they're already getting good services from a special district. But two, especially on the fire side, again, in the area he was talking about, I said, you know, right, that your fire district that you live in, that you just mentioned, provides the fire service to the city. They don't have their own fire department. I didn't know that. So it's a huge learning curve. A lot of people think that you're not government entities, especially that happens in DC, because on the east side of the country, they don't have special districts. Have any of you seen the John Oliver segment on YouTube? You can pull that up. He's a comedian, HBO comedian. Pull that up and you'll be a little bit dismayed or shocked, because he's got a whole segment on the dangers of special districts and how they're out of control government. And it's humorous, but not humorous if you're one of us watching it. But that's kind of the conception, unfortunately, that there is nationally, that special districts are unaccountable. You don't have elected boards, et cetera. Another huge problem we had is, especially they got highlighted during COVID, which I'll talk about in a minute, is we didn't have any national representation in Washington, D.C. League of Oregon Cities, the National League of Cities has over 400 employees. The National Association of Counties has over 200 employees. Special districts has, now we have Cole, which he's better than all of them, I tell you. But we also have a national lobbying firm we're contracting with. But up until COVID, we had nothing. So where this all came about, as far as really recognizing this huge problem we've got, was during the COVID crisis, especially first during the CARES Act. Originally, during the CARES Act, the federal authorization to define local government being essentially city, county, school district, et cetera. Special districts were not included in that local government definition. As a result, there was no authorization technically to give any money to special districts in the country. And so we tried arguing the point that, no, the states could still give us some of their money, but actually the cities and counties across the country, they've actively lobbied and said, no, we weren't in that definition. We should not get a dime. Now, I understand that they're trying to protect their interests, but without that authorization, if the only states in the country that ended up getting any money at all out of the CARES Act was Oregon. Thanks to Sina and Mark's great efforts, they were able to convince the governor's office to share $25 million with special districts out of, I think, the $150 million that were available to the other types of local governments in the state. Colorado, I think I made a mistake in my slide here, also got some money with Ann over there, but the rest of the country got zero for special districts. Then came the huge act, the American Rescue Plan Act, which in Oregon alone, cities and counties got $1.5 billion, not million, billion dollars directly to cities and counties. Again, there was no specific requirement that any of that money go to the federal government. Now, because during this whole crisis, the Special Districts Association of Oregon, California, Colorado, we got together and just said, we got to do something. We got to jointly, immediately coalesce and try to get a federal lobbyist on board. And so that's what we did. And so we started to get a little bit of that message out there. And then Cole, he actually worked for the California Special Districts Association, and his executive director graciously said, you know what, I'm going to devote 100% of Cole's time to working on the federal level, because Cole actually used to work for Kevin McCarthy a while ago. And so we were able to make a little bit of impact, but the impact was that when the authorization came out, it said that cities, counties, and the states could elect to share some of their monies with special districts. How many think, how many people, how many entities elect to share money with their neighbors? Right? How often did that happen in this state or any other state? Practically none. I mean, there were actually a few counties that did reach out and share some money with their neighbors, and actually there were for some cities too, but by and large, special districts were almost entirely left out. And so then our next effort was, well, let's go to the state, because the state got what, I think $2.5 billion. And we argued with the state that, well, you got all this money, we got nothing. Everybody else got money, schools, city, you know, give us something. Give us 100 million, at least something. No, zero. We made no inroads with the governor's office. And then the legislators, and I'll talk a little bit about that, the input we got back about why they didn't make it a priority to allocate money to special districts. Now, there were certain legislators, highlight one specifically, Cedric Hayden, who decided that he needed to support his special districts because each legislator was given a pot of money that they could distribute to their communities. And luckily, Cedric Hayden, who's a senator now, was a representative, but he had a very strong background and belief in public health and rural communities, and he was a dentist. And he decided it was part of his mission to help out the rural communities in his area, and all of his rural communities get their services from special districts. But by and large, special districts got practically nothing. So, you know, the League of Oregon Cities, they advertised to their members that this pot of money was a true generational impact, some money that has never been seen before to impact the people that live in cities and counties. That's excellent. Well, what if you live outside a city? Where do you get your services? You get your services from you all, or even inside the city, you get a lot of the services from you. So that's the problem. That was the big problem. So what did we learn from this after talking to legislators specifically in Oregon? We asked districts to send us copies of letters and correspondence that they sent. And less than 100 districts that we know of actually reached out to their legislators. And when we talked to individual legislators and said, hey, why did you decide, why didn't you advocate for special districts? They said, I didn't hear from anybody. So I just figured there wasn't a problem. Timing and lack of response. So, and then we contacted members and we said, why, you know, did we not do a good enough job communicating that we needed you to take action? And frankly, I think that it was true that the response was, no, we don't think you did, because we tried to by reaching out through electronic means, right? That's how you communicate now. But a whole lot of people don't read our news, unfortunately. So that's one thing put on your list. Read your SDA news. It comes out once a week. I know it's very easy to delete, and some of you probably have it blocked even as spam. Unblock it, unblock it and read it. At least the main articles. Read that once a week. But most districts we talked to said, we didn't have enough time to react, because we would find out, and this is how the process works at the legislature. You find out about a bill, you find out about an issue that's going to maybe have a hearing next week, and you don't have time to react. So you need to respond right away. And so when we sent out these alerts, we said, please respond. Majority of the input we got back was, you know, we've got our board meeting's not for a month, and the agenda's already gone out. So I think we can get on the agenda for a month and a half. Too late, right? It's over, game over. Can't wait for that. So what we put together is a resolution, a model resolution that we've had our attorneys vet, that essentially fill in the blank and modify yourselves, but a resolution that you all can adopt, giving somebody in your district, whether it's your general manager, your fire chief, or if you don't have employees, your board chair, or both, authorization to take action on behalf of the district on legislative issues that maybe come from SDAO. And it in there specifies things out that everybody should, I would think, agree with, like finance issues, especially funding issues, affecting special districts, et cetera. Nothing controversial, just things that hopefully your whole board and your community would agree with, that then you can say, trigger that right away. And then what we also heard was, well, we had to get authorization, and then we had to draft the letter, and we gave template letter. Don't send letters. That's what we heard from legislators too. Said, we don't read letters anymore, or they do, but it takes some maybe weeks, the same time to get through their mail. Email. There's nothing. It doesn't have to be a formal letter. It doesn't have to be on your letterhead. It doesn't have to be signed by the whole board. Just communicate, pick up the phone, right? It doesn't have to be a formal process. Give that input. Again, what we heard was that 100% of the cities, 100% contacted every legislator in the state, every representative, every senator in the state. That had a huge impact, gigantic impact. Whereas we got maybe 10%. Now, if we had all 1,000 special districts contacting their legislator, if we had all 5,000 board members reaching out, do you think that would make an impact? Absolutely. It would make a gigantic impact. So build those relationships with your legislators. Collective action. Another thing we heard from districts was, well, my district is not really impacted. We're going to be okay. So we didn't weigh in. Don't think about it like that. Think about like the League of Oregon Cities. Everybody weighed in. So think about the other districts around you, your neighbors, as a collective of all special districts in the state. Make your points, reach out, say why it's important, even if it's not going to directly affect you. I'm going to have to pull out my reading glasses here for a second. So when to build those relationships? Most people think that reaching out to your legislator means you wait for a legislative day at the Capitol, or you go down to the Capitol building during session and you try to get in and make an appointment to see your legislator. That's probably the least effective thing that you can do, unless you have maybe a full-time lobbyist that's also helping you with that. But for the most part, you need to be reaching out to your legislators well before the session. You need to be building those relationships now. Many legislators and congressional reps that have town hall meetings, you probably see advertised. Make sure you show up for those. Introduce yourself, shake their hand, let them know what you do. I think one of the most important and effective things you can do is invite them out to your district. I mean, they can learn so much by coming out and seeing your operations. Give them a tour of the sewer treatment plant, give them a tour of the fire station, or whatever it is you do. They will be generally interested, and it will really sink in then what you are. Explain how you're different and how you operate, how you affect your community, and especially invite them to a community event. Put on a barbecue or something for the community and invite them to come. I mean, they'll love that. And anytime you can get them in front of constituents, those are all their voters. They're going to be there. And that's going to have a huge impact, especially like if you're a library district and you have a Friends of the Library event, and you've got all the supporters of the library and they're also their voters, and they show up there. That's going to have a gigantic impact. So really think about doing those types of things. Why would you want to do it, right? I mean, we've already talked about one of the most important things, which is funding. And it not only goes to just overall funding in these big abstract terms, like I talked about, like the ARPA funds, but really when it comes down to specific infrastructure projects for your district, it can make a big impact by going and letting them know what you're working on, letting them know your challenges. They can also have their staff assist you with what grant funding or loans might be available for you. But put that on their radar, because they do have a chance often during legislative session to put bills in or join on to different legislative packages to get money for your district for those specific projects. And like I mentioned, Cedric Hayden, the way he got all that money allocated for the districts within his legislative district is there was a big omnibus bill, is that what it's called? It comes out at the end of the session. And essentially it's a chance for everybody at the end to throw in anything they want. into the budget. Well, in that, he said, you know what? I've been contacted from some of my districts. I know that they're really hurting and I want $2 million for my special districts. He put that right in the legislation, right in this. And so because of that, that's how they got the money. Other representatives could have done that. Another thing, do your research, know what they like. I mean, know what their interests are. Like, again, I'm using Senator Hayden as an example. I mean, it's great to know he's very interested in rural communities, public health. Use that to have him come out and think about the themes that you can try to express that he's going to want to fund or that he's going to want to support. Provide the value. And that's, again, where you want to put him in front of the voters, make them understand that your people that support your community are also those that put him in office, or he or she. So what's the solution? We've been working on some things like today, trying to continuously put the word out there, get you thinking about what you can do in advance, not just again during the session, but now throughout the year. Think about those contacts you can make. These are all just people. They're glad to come out and talk to you. Another thing is that their staff are just as important or more important than they are sometimes, especially at the congressional level. It's their staff that's making decisions. Often it's the staff that's making those recommendations. The staff is very approachable. The congressional reps have office staff that are based in Oregon. They live here, and they also have DC staff. But those people, I did a training for Merkley's staff a couple months ago. And again, not one person in his staff, there were 8 people on that call, knew what a special district was. And I gave them the whole pitch training on what a special district is. And they were generally like, wow, this is awesome. Because people love the story. People love the story that special districts are. I mean, if you talk about democracy and what this country is all about, it's you. I mean, at the most basic level, just people getting together in their communities, making decisions themselves for what's best for their communities and doing it a lot of times for free and out of the goodness of your heart and doing what's best. That story just resonates so well. And when they find out about it, they're like, wow, I want to learn more and I want to support what you're doing. SDAO news, read your SDAO news. Legislative day, we had that. We had about 100 districts or attendees come to that in January. It ended up being a really great event. I hope, did anybody come? Did you enjoy that presentation? Yeah. Put that on your calendar for next time we do that, please. We'd love to get a even bigger turnout. Increase awareness of special districts. Again, this is just as important as any legislative contacts, and you can do this throughout your community. A lot of county commissioners don't know what you do. County commissioners even don't know what a special district is. And the cities too within your areas don't necessarily know what a special district is. Those are easy contacts that you can make to set up a meeting. And the Kiwanis, the Rotary, any kind of community group, they're always looking for interesting topics. Come in and talk about what you do. And we have video online. If you go about us on the website, there's resources. There's a what is a special district brochure that you can download. It's got a video that you could play on what's a special district. One thing we've done, of course, is we're investing in the National Special Districts Coalition. We've been adding more. There's not very many statewide entities like SDAO, but a lot of states have like a water district association, a fire district association, a ports association. So we're signing those up as associate members. Anybody have an idea how many special districts there are in the state? I mean, in the country? 30,000 special districts in the country, but we have no legislative voice. So we're trying to change that. It's going to be baby steps, but I think we're already making some progress. And with that, I am going to now turn it over to Cole, who's going to give you background on what we are doing at the national level and kind of the priorities and plans and things that we're trying to focus on. Before I guess I turn it over to Cole, any questions for me? Yes. Well, I think anybody can be, but obviously the main champions are going to. Oh, sorry. Repeat the question is who do I feel are the champions of special districts in the legislature? And I guess I would say, I think anybody can be, but the main champions are the people that actually rely on special districts for their communities. Those are absolutely the best supporters. Probably the least supportive would be our legislators, honestly, in Portland. That hold a lot of power in the state because there aren't, the special districts in Portland are Port of Portland, TriMet, Metro. We don't really think of those as special districts, to tell you the truth. I mean, they are, but those are monster entities, right? They're just pretty much tied in with the structure up in the Portland area. So it's harder to get them to understand. But I think a good lesson for me was, for instance, reaching out to Senator Merkley's staff. Senator Merkley is a Portland-based person. Traditionally, he's been seen as very focused on Portland issues, but he's now become a really big supporter of rural communities. And so is his staff. And so I think it's worth reaching out to anybody, but certainly the champions, I think our main champions are going to be those in the rural areas, which is most of our state. Anything else? Yes. Absolutely agree. And so the comment was that in Washington, D.C., it takes a great deal of time and effort to not only be in front of our Congress senators, but also in front of all the committees that they have that impact us. Okay, with that, Cole, you're up.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask a really dumb question that I already know the answer to. How many people have an infrastructure issue with your district? How many people have been impacted by wildfire? How many people are really ticked off that you're not getting part of the opioid settlement? Okay. Hey, we've got all sorts of great topics now to talk about with our legislators, right? I just gave you 3. Let's talk about how to talk about those. Yeah, my name is Cole Ariola-Carr. I'm the Federal Advocacy Director for the National Special Districts Coalition. As Frank had mentioned, Frank has teed up a lot of the conversation here already. So I'll be complimenting a lot of what Frank has mentioned and sowing a little bit of some seeds on some conversations, kind of like we just did, that we are working on forcefully from the NSDC that you can talk about with your elected representatives in Congress. I would pose to you all that right now, this is actually, we're about to get into probably a very good era of working with your congressional delegation here in Oregon. You have a new congressional seat. Half of your congressional delegation in the House are brand new. These are people that are fresh and they're going to be good to get in the door with very soon. Talk about your district because they're going to be learning everything right now. Help them absorb what you do. This is a very good opportunity to do it. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll show you a couple of maps to where they are. But we're going to get started here. Just talk a little bit about the basics, like who are your representatives? That's obviously the number one thing. Who are your representatives? How to establish and maintain that working relationship with your congressional office. And then when you should really connect with your congressional offices. I mean, it's always good to connect. It's good to have those conversations flowing, but there are some times when it's real meaningful to make it happen. And that's what we want to focus on. Working with congressional members of Congress, I'm going to give this presentation a little bit as a lifelong recovery former congressional staffer. So giving you some PTSD, little points and best practices here for that. But really what it comes down to, working with your federal legislatures, it is very different than working with your state legislators. It's just the dynamics. You're not going to be seeing your member of Congress show up very often because they have 725,000 people on average in Oregon that they represent. They have staffs of about 30 or so, half of which are typically here in your district, or at least in their district, in your community. And it is very, very vital to be working with those people in your district offices. Like in Bend, for instance, Congressman Bentz has an office in Bend. Work with that staff, for instance. That's going to be the best way when you get down and get at the base level and try to introduce your concepts, introduce your districts. Talking with the staffs there at that local level is going to be the best way to get started. So we're going to talk about this, about identifying your federal representatives, because you don't have as many as you do in the state. You have 2 senators, obviously, and then you've got 6 representatives that represent different areas of the state. You did gain 1 here in Oregon. There's a new district that's just to the southeast. They pretty much put it right there to the southeast of Portland, the Oregon 6. You've got Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley, who are very influential senators in the U.S. Senate. Ron Wyden, also a good friend. Merkley and Wyden are good friends of special districts both. Wyden has been very helpful with us through our COVID efforts early on, from his position, his influential position. Now, as at that time, he was the chair of the finance committee, so was able to really make some moves. And also with that, we talked a little bit about the committees and knowing what your senators and your representatives are interested in, kind of what their jam is. As I mentioned, Ron Wyden is the chairman of the finance committee. So anything financial, if you've got an issue that's district finance, if there's some issues that's like bonding and issues that are coming up federally that you need to have some like financial reporting issues on, Ron Wyden's probably going to be your guy to go talk to, just because of his place and influence on the finance committee in the Senate. Also, I mentioned Congressman Bentz a minute ago. We're still getting some of our chairships and our committeeships all hammered out in DC. It's really a slow start to the year this year with the new Congress. Last year, Congressman Bentz was an influential member. He was the vice chair of the Natural Resources Subcommittee on Water, Oceans, and Wildlife. So again, kind of those wildfire issues, some of those items that those natural resources oriented issues that you may have. If you're a member or if you're a constituent of Congressman Bentz, he's your guy to talk to. He's going to be the one that's going to be able to maybe pull some strings and get some motion flowing for you. Also, I'm going to show you real quick a good way to quickly figure out who your member of the House of Representatives are. That's a really tiny link down there. But if you go to the house.gov website, you're going to, I'm going to go up there a little bit. There you go. If you go to the house.gov website, you can type in your zip code and you can figure out who your member of Congress is right there. Also, just to, it should be noticed here, we did have some redrawings, so it's probably a good idea to go in and figure out who your member of Congress is now, in case you live in one of those areas that are no longer, that have changed. Sorry, I'm doing this backwards. I got a little bit flipped in my head here. Sorry, but this is your old congressional district map. So you've pretty much everyone out on the east side, the majority of the east side of Oregon, you're all still going to be in Congressman Bentz's district for the most part. It's the east side of Oregon, or certainly the west side of Oregon, that had a big change. So this is last year. This is this year. So that new district down to the southeast of Oregon, brand new opportunities galore there. You've got Susan Bonamici, Cliff Bentz, and Earl Blumenauer that are your returning members of Congress. Also, Park and Rec districts, Earl Blumenauer is your guy. He's a big, you'll always see him with a bike pen. So yep, another one of those that you could latch onto pretty well. Val Hoyle, Lori Chavez, I can't say her last name, DeRimmer, and Andrea Salinas are your new members of Congress. That's all on the east side. So pretty much if you're south of Portland, you got a new member of Congress. That's what it's coming down to. So this would be the best time to start reaching out and talking to those members of Congress. They are new, and getting them introduced to the concepts of special districts. If you live in one of those zip codes that are split by a special district, or that are split by congressional districts, when you type in your zip code there, you're going to get both of those. You're going to have to type in your street address. it'll identify your member of Congress there that represents your district specifically, and you can click on their websites and get all of their get their contact information, best ways to contact either in DC or here in Oregon. So the best way to start approaching this, because as I mentioned, 725,000 constituents, there's a bunch of activities that are going on for members of Congress, especially on the Senate side, because they represent everyone in the state. The best good start to do this, when you look up your congressional office, go ahead and just jump on that contact me page. That's going to have their phone numbers, their addresses, where their members are, where their offices are in district. And it's also going to have a way that you can submit messages directly to them. So kind of like what Frank was mentioning earlier, you don't really have to just submit like a formal letterhead item. This is the perfect opportunity to just go in and send an email, just a quick note that'll drop straight into their inboxes. And a legislative coordinator, or excuse me, a legislative correspondent in DC and all of their offices will sort through those messages that come through. It'll get assigned to a staffer. And then from there, you've got your issue rolling. So the most simple way to really get in touch to begin with is looking at that contact me page. Engage with your field staff. Mentioned that earlier. I was former field staff as well. And a lot of the members, I believe, that of Congress or Senator Merkley's staff were they field staff as well. So these are the people that are on the ground. They are the eyes, the ears, the really everything for the members of Congress in their community, because they are oftentimes out in DC. It's really hard to be back here and be in person. So you have your field representatives or your constituent services engagement managers in your offices. Reach out to them. Call your local office. If you're in Portland or down in Eugene or Medford, the members of Congress have offices in those cities. Call them, see who that field rep is, introduce the concept of your district. Say, hi, I'm Dan Marquez, and I'm from the Medford Rural Fire Protection District, and here's what we do. Talk a little bit about an issue and invite them out. Invite them out to see a fire truck. It sounds so simple, and it sounds so kind of flat, just to come out and see your fire trucks and see your fire hydrants and really like get in the groove of what all you do. It actually does make a difference. Having that staffer come out and visit with you and see what you do, even if it is simple, it does have an impact. They take that back to their staff. If you've got a good member of Congress, they're going to have weekly staff meetings. You're going to be talked about a little bit there. And that's how you end up getting the ball rolling. It's that first contact, that first subtle touch, even if it's a simple thing, it's how you get the ball rolling. Eventually, when you get that first relationship established there, you're going to end up having some of these issues. Like maybe, I'm going to keep talking about you, Dan. Maybe, Dan, you've got an issue where you don't have good water access for your firefighting capabilities out in your rural communities. This is a great opportunity to start talking to that staff member about that issue. Darren will probably talk a little bit about that as well. Talk about that, and then eventually you're going to have that common space within that member's office. Eventually, if you'll have hopefully a visit from your member of Congress over time, you got to take those baby steps to get that relationship in order. But throughout all of that, you've got your working relationship when issues come up, when earmarks come up. If you've got an appropriations need that you need for your district, like a grant issue or something, you've got a good contact there to reach out to and start asking for support for some issues. Maybe if you have a legislative need or an issue, it's going to be a lot easier to start advocating for that because you've got that working relationship with that staffer. So after you share your district story and how you're different from the county and the city, which is very important, that's going to be the best time to start having that follow-up and fostering those conversations. If you've got that community barbecue or the Friends of the Library event, invite them out. You'll probably get the staffer. Never get offended because you get a staffer. That's what they're there for. They'll probably bring out sometimes members of Congress will bring their staff will bring kind of like a certificate or something, kind of like just to mark the occasion, and they'll do a nice presentation for you. And then eventually when it comes time, like for instance, if you've got a wildfire coming up and you're like, oh gosh, there's a policy issue that's stemming from it, and like something's not working on the ground, You're going to be that expert feedback person eventually for that member of Congress if you keep that relationship going, if you keep that good contact when you need to contact with that district staff. Because eventually, as I mentioned, the district and DC communications over time, that does happen. That does happen the district and DC conversations, they happen all the time. Eventually, it's going to get ingrained in those staffers in DC because of the communication from the member offices here. And that is exactly how you get your awareness in place in DC here from Oregon. One thing that is very, very important that I must always share, always give a special districts 101 chat. Never, ever be thinking that you're going to offend someone because you're going to start asking them what you think might be a simple question. For instance, what I do for every member of Congress's staff, the first question that we ask, how familiar are you with special districts? Hey, guess how many times we get a yes? We don't. So it seems like a very simple concept to us, but for others, it's not. And that wisdom, imparting just the very, very basics of what we do as special districts, that is the cornerstone bedrock of every first conversation that you need to do with any new staff member that you meet. Doesn't matter if it's in Congressman Wyden's office, who I've mentioned is a good friend of ours. That staff member that you're talking to may not have a good understanding of what you're actually doing, though. Just for them, it's still a good idea to ask. Always ask and always share. You can overshare too. That's a good thing to do too. Yes, sir. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. About SDAO. So the question is, how do we explain what SDAO is and what it is? Frank, do you want to talk about that? Because I know it's a little different. Frank says SDAO is a public nonprofit corporation. I had to turn that over to Frank there for a minute because you all do have a little bit of a different setup compared to the other states. So yeah, you're a public nonprofit corporation that is advocating for all special districts, no matter the type of service that they provide in the state. That is how we typically will describe what our state associations are. So when to contact. If you've never been, if there's never been a local congressional office contact, like if you're sitting here right now and you're thinking, I don't think my district's ever reached out to Congresswoman Bonamici, go ahead and do that. Maybe when you get back to your staffs, to your offices on Monday, look up what that contact number is and reach out, make that phone call. It's just, if you've never made that contact, now's the good time. If you have a new representative that's elected, introduce yourself to the staff. Like I mentioned, if you're south of Portland, that's going to be you. If you have, if we have like a call to action, if there is an issue that we know is impacting special districts from the National Special Districts Coalition that we want to make sure that all special districts are going to be engaged on, send that letter of support, or just go ahead and type in that simple message on the contact me page. Just let your members of Congress know your position on a bill or any kind of policy issue that may directly impact your special district. Any kind of funding need, if you have a grant need, funding need, project, community issue, anything that needs to be funded, talk to them about that. Actually, right now, and I'm going to get into this in a minute, this is the time to be talking to your members of Congress about your community needs, about the issues. The appropriations is the money. It's the federal funding. If you have a federal funding need, right now, this time of year is the best time to do it. The appropriations committees are finally now kind of getting settled in, and they're going to start looking at fiscal year 2024 appropriations next month. So right now they are looking for community feedback on what's going on in your community and what your needs are for special districts funding. This is a good time to start engaging with them and talking about those needs ahead of those appropriations bills as they get released. And I shared up here, sharing the appropriations requests and needs. It's typically about February to May. It always starts in the House of Representatives, and then it'll go over to the senators after the House passes their bills. But yes, this is the time they're scoping, for lack of a better term, through about May. And then the real prime time to start advocating for what's been able to go in is about May to September. Every year, Congress has to pass federal funding by September 30th. They are terrible at it. They don't do it. So September 30th is pretty much the cutoff for the fiscal year for the following year for appropriations for those conversations. So yeah, that's the best time when to contact. And I mentioned earlier, never be offended by getting a staffer. Their eyes and ears, it's the way to make it happen. But it is nice to get that member visit, that member of Congress to come and visit. That's more likely when there is that established relationship. To be honest with you, my threshold for recommending some meetings as a former staffer is knowing the issue, knowing that they have a good issue to talk to. I know that I work for 3 members. I know I want to have that member of Congress spend their valuable time that's very limited with this district, for instance, because I know everything that's going on and I know that they're not crazy. Okay. So that is really the best way to start getting that member of Congress to actually come and visit. It is a good, warm, fuzzy feeling, obviously. So, and then also if there is a hot topic, a policy issue of the day that is getting a lot of headlines, or maybe it's locally, maybe it's nationally, like for instance, wildfires. If you're a community that's been impacted by wildfire and you're having a tough time trying to make sure that your community is ready to go for the next fire, that's a hot topic right now. That might be a really good opportunity to engage with that staff and get that member of Congress out to visit with you. So member visits, the actual member of Congress, a little bit more common when they're on their work periods, their district work periods or their state work periods. That is typically about the 2 weeks around Easter and Passover. It's also the weeks of Memorial Day and the 4th of July, and also pretty much every August, the entire month of August to about Labor Day. It's the traditional August recess. Members of the House and the Senate will come back to their districts. And then of election years, typically there's a time where all the members are going to be campaigning in October. You can find the House and the Senate calendars on it's the majority whip, the majority leader over on the House side, and the majority leader over on the Senate side will release these calendars. I've included links down here for you. If there's a copy of the presentation virtually, you can click on those, and those are the 2023 calendars. So you kind of get a sense of what's going on in Congressman. Any questions about that? About how to engage, when to engage? Yes, sir.
Just a tip, when I talk to my federal officials, the first thing I do is compliment them on their staff that I work with, and then get a better relationship with my staff. And have you found that they talk to the elected board members different than general managers? Because I always
the question Walter has mentioned, he mentioned that what he does, best practice, always compliments the staff. And then from there, yeah, the question was, do members of Congress and their staff typically work a little different with board members and their general managers? That's probably more of a case-by-case basis, but for the past 4 years of working with special districts and connecting them with their legislators, no, it just kind of depends. Any other questions? Yes, sir. The question is, what items are appropriate to bring to the staffers? So the best thing to do if you've got a federal issue, if it's something like, for instance, you got an issue with Forest Service or working with them, that's a good thing to talk about. If you've got an issue, if you've got a water infrastructure project, for instance, that you need, that's a federal issue from the state revolving fund from EPA. Talk to them about your water infrastructure issues. The things to not talk about with them are going to be kind of like for instance, if you got to have like a building to paint or something. If it's something that is more state focused, if it is a state policy need that the federal officials are going to be really removed from, don't talk to them as much about that. Sometimes it's good to talk a little bit about how state issues impact your district a little bit at the high level, but they're not going to be able to do anything about it. It's good for them to understand kind of the environment that we have to work in and what they can do federally. But when it comes to state issues or local issues, members of Congress aren't going to be able to help very much. Okay, time check. Any other questions? Okay, real briefly, just a quick history, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the items that we're working on at the federal level that you can see in some of your conversations. So as we mentioned, we started back in 2018. The National Special Districts Coalition did 5 special districts associations in 5 states that represent their special districts broadly, all types. We got California, Colorado, and Terry is here from Colorado. We've got Florida, Oregon, and Utah. And in the time since, we've expanded to another 5 states as well. We really started getting all of this together over the course of the CARES Act and ARPA through 2020, when we realized we had a major issue and special districts were not defined as a local unit of government to access CARES Act money. We pulled together, we expanded out our coalition. We learned through this process a lot more about other states' special districts. We discovered that there's another organization just like SDAO in South Carolina and Wyoming, also in Pennsylvania. So we're working out to broaden this coalition, to elevate our voice, to reach more members of Congress with their constituents. And now here we are in 2022. We have actually expanded to another state. We're in Arizona now as well, with and Washington too. And the legislative director, that's me. You got me. Our policy platform is one that we do every 2 years. We just went through and revitalized it a little bit for the 118th Congress that just started. But what we have, we operate our legislative advocacy and what we do to communicate all of the needs to you all based on a policy doc. It's about 11 pages of policy issues that are of importance to special districts broadly across the country. We do this, we source it, all of our memberships, we get together and we talk it through, and whatever sticks as a common thread is what we end up having for our platform and what we advocate on. The number one thing that we are working on that everyone in this room is impacted by is defining special district in federal law. Currently, there is no definition of what special district is in federal law outside of it is not a school district. We appreciate that. Obviously, special districts are not school districts. But what happens with this vagueness, you get a lot of room for fuzziness, I guess you can say. What is a district without a definition is very complex, especially when you have 48 different states with special districts active there that all handle them very differently. All of these 48 states have different types of special districts that operate within them. They all have different kind of governing structures, but they're all subdivisions, political subdivisions of the state that are exactly like what we have here in Oregon, just different nuances. That makes it very, very difficult for federal legislators, federal regulators, and anyone that has to do local government programming. It makes it very difficult from a federal level to administer funding to special districts. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those what was mentioned was special districts being seated on local government commissions, which would be like metropolitan planning organizations, I believe, and having those conversations and interfacing there. That is a very good item. But defining that special district, what we are, Yes, and working with MPOs to make sure that those local organizations, they will grant those funds out to your special districts too. We want to make sure that we do have a working definition that is going to be included in unit of local government defining for eligibility for projects and programming federally. We don't want to be in another situation where we have an entire class of local government that gets excluded from a major funding opportunity just because no one knows what we are and they can't define us. So we are now currently working with a couple members of Congress. We've been working with it's now called the Committee on Oversight and Accountability that has some jurisdiction over local government organization under federal law. We've worked with them and we are waiting for now a formal report from the Library of Congress on what special districts are for members of Congress for their awareness, and how we interact with local government programming across federal law. For instance, it's a web. For instance, local special districts are eligible for state revolving funds under the EPA clean water and drinking water programs as a municipality. That's about the only place where we see special district defined as a municipality. We're not a municipality, really. And that makes it very, very difficult and very interesting when it comes to other local government programs and how we end up seeing those be executed. For instance, the USDA rural development programs, those are a little bit different in how they're executed. We've got CDBG, for instance, the community development block grant funds that special districts are not allowed to access directly. And that's because we are not a defined unit of government that is geographic with population figures. You have to go to your cities and your counties to get that CDBG funds. So what we're going to work on with that report that we're going to have from the Library of Congress and with a little bit of an ad hoc committee that we're putting together with NSDC, we are going to be putting together a formal definition proposal to put forward in federal law to make sure that we do not get left out ever again. So we have this as a priority. What we do, we have a number of resources to help you guide your conversations with your federal officials and their staffs about what special districts are, a good way to approach that and put it into context. So we've got those, and we are always encouraging our members to go and talk to their members of Congress and always talk about what a special district is and really define what a special district is, define what you do and how you fit within the mold of local government. That is the most important number one thing. NSDC legislative platform edition this year is also under our climate adaptation and community resiliency title. That's we named it. It's a lot more than just climate adaptation, climate change. It's also emergency preparedness and cybersecurity issues. But one of the things that we are working on, and I'll talk a bit in a minute, is looking at addressing adequate gaps in adequate water infrastructure for firefighting. We've seen this a lot in rural communities and urban wildland interface communities as well. And we have made this addressing that by setting up a standalone infrastructure program to fund water infrastructure for firefighting, a key priority that we will be working on this year. And we're working to identify top members of Congress to run with right now. And then also anything infrastructure and federal funding, we just want to make sure that special districts are right there, that the members of Congress that are running these bills are aware of what special districts are so that they understand that we need to be perfectly defined right in there as eligible for access. I'm going to share briefly kind of an unfortunate thing that's happening at the moment that we're working on as an element of awareness of what special districts are. There's currently a bill that's about to be introduced at Senator Rubio from Florida. And it is legislation that would help rural and small communities under 50,000 get additional access and resources, technical assistance for grant funding so that we can help get the federal funding into our communities where special districts serve. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to put special district in as a definition as an eligible entity to get access to these funding and this program that he has in mind, because he just doesn't understand it. Also, he's in Florida and there's a little bit of a Disney issue right now. And the number one issue that he has right now that we can attain is, first, the cities want to make sure that they get all the bite at it. And two, He doesn't understand that special districts are actually small because Disney is massive. The Reedy Creek Improvement District is also massive. They're looking at it through the lens of, oh, well, all districts are like Disney, and that's really unfortunate. So there's another item to start talking about. We're not Disney. Some of our vector control districts get rid of mice, right? So, all right. Yes, sir.
So, I'll give city to.
Okay.
From Sanitary District to Klamath County. Klamath County, we've got a population of 80,000. We have 5 incorporated cities. They're all small. Biggest one. That's a population. Combined, our cities serves about a third of the population. Right. 2/3 of the citizens are served by special districts.
Absolutely. Is the question about population figures?
No.
Yeah. So the issue that we have.
I think it matters to those that are in elected office.
Mhm.
Know where their votes are coming from. At least in Clinton County, it's probably the same route as CB2. The vast majority of those votes come from people served by special districts.
Yes. The comment was the vast majority of people that are served, the constituents that vote for members of Congress are served by special districts. So it's a good thing to also point out the constituent power that special districts have as well. I mentioned a minute ago, closing community gaps in fire suppression. We discovered over the course of a couple of grant requests that we received and some funding needs from special districts that there's a huge gap in the ability to fund projects that would enhance water resources for firefighting in all modes of communities. Currently, we've received some requests to look for some funding are funding opportunities to do things like tanks or co-locating wells with fire stations or improving infrastructure to where you have adequate fire flow. Unfortunately, there are a number of programs that have restrictions and prohibitions on servicing projects like this. For instance, I mentioned the SRF funds. They have a strict prohibition on investing in their water infrastructure funding in any kind of project that is strictly for fire flow and fire suppression needs. The assistance to firefighter grants, which is good for the rural communities, they have restrictions and limitations on, for instance, like the shuttle trucks, the water tenders. There we go. They have restrictions on how much the water tenders and other vehicles, ambulances, so on and so forth, can actually be spent out of the annual appropriations for the fund. So we have a lot of issues in trying to make sure that we can get adequate resources to provide the adequate resources. There is no program for this. So we will be working this year with members of Congress to set up a pilot standalone infrastructure program, ideally housed under FEMA, because it would be increasing water for firing is an act of mitigation and disaster prep, to fund on a cost share basis projects that would increase water infrastructure, water resources to help fight fires in urban wildland interface communities and rural communities and suburban communities. It's something that we are starting to get our feet kind of planted on, and we are looking for some members of Congress to lead this effort. Darren, who you'll hear from in a minute, and Adam Denlinger has been part of the efforts to identify these issues and how they really impact special districts. With 10,500 water and fire protection districts serving communities across the country, this is definitely an issue that we want to be at the forefront of, and we will be working on. So if you are a fire district or a water district that has an issue with supplying adequate water resources to make sure that you've got good fire suppression coverage, this is going to be a really, really good topic to talk to your members of Congress about, to get their support, take your examples, tell the story about how inadequate water for fire actually impacts you and your community and your constituents, and how it is a public safety and public health issue. This is something that we will be looking at, and we will be doing a lot of advocacy on. Read your SDAO news. coming up in the next couple of months, because we'll be putting out a lot of recommendations and resources on that. Okay, this is the last thing that I'm going to mention before tossing it over to Chief Busick. Earmarks are back. Are we familiar with earmarks? Anyone familiar? Okay, so earmarks used to be a really big deal. They were very unfettered. Earmarks are abilities for members of Congress to put in certain project funding amounts in appropriation bills for a specific project in their community. This went away in 2010, but it came back with fiscal year 2022 and the appropriations process there. It's back again for fiscal year 2024. So what we're looking at for how to approach your earmarks, I'm going to share a little bit about that. So if you have a project, if you have a need that is infrastructure, pretty much any infrastructure need, for instance, or a community program that you're looking to invest in a little bit more, you've tried for grants or there are no grant opportunities out there. This is, again, the very, very good time if your member of Congress is participating in the earmark program to start having those conversations about your community needs, what the project details are, and the amounts of funding. So what we'll do, I've got a publication that we'll send out after this that will detail some of the forecast of what we have for the fiscal year 2024 earmarks process, some of the different funding accounts and the different projects that would be eligible for earmarks under what the Appropriations Committee would outline in their rules. We also want to make sure that aside from communicating now with your members of Congress about your project and the issues that you might have with it, you need to also be looking around to your cities, your counties, community stakeholders, anyone else to come in and either partner with you on your project or at least lend your support to your project. Start gathering those documents, those letters of support, for instance, so that when it comes time when members of Congress open their submission period for earmark requests, you're ready to roll. You've got all of your project details, you've got your letters of support, you've got the demonstration that your project is significant to your community and to the region. You're ready to roll when this happens. I say that because it is a very quick process. It is a very flighty process that every member of Congress is going to do differently. And I should also note that not every member of Congress is going to participate. Last year, I don't believe Congressman Bentz participated in this, but I believe everyone else in Oregon did. So start thinking about that, start making that outreach, that initial outreach, and get all your project items together and get that conversation going. I mentioned that it will all happen very quickly, probably about March, April, and then into May for the House, and they will be very quiet about their deadlines. So be careful to, again, watch your SDAO news, because we'll be looking for those appropriations deadlines and some of the rules that each House member has for that, so that we can get it to you all, so that you kind of know what to work with. So again, more reasons to read your SDAO news. And yeah, so that's pretty much, that's the gist. That's what we've got going. We want to make sure that you all are aware of and have your seated conversations to connect with. Yes, sir. Yes. Mm-hmm. The question is whether nonpartisan board positions have an effect in the partisan environment that we have in DC. I would say no. I would say that it actually helps. It helps a lot. It helps not to bring in Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal ideologies. It's best to just leave that all outside the office. Just talk about your district, talk about the issues that you have in front of you, and just leave the Republican, Democrat stuff on the side. It's the best thing. So non-affiliated, the no party positions here, that helps definitely. Yes, sir. So it's a political issue for a lot of most of the members of Congress that did not participate in the earmark process last year, the year before, were Republicans. One Democrat did not participate, Katie Porter down in California. It's just an ideology. It's just an ideological standpoint that every member of Congress decides whether they want to participate or not. It's seen as pork spending by some, earmarks are, so they don't want to participate. But it's not, I should note, just because Congressman Bentz isn't participating in the earmark program does not mean that it is not a good idea to start reaching out about those appropriations needs, because he will be taking those into consideration when it comes to appropriations time, because every member of Congress does get a little bit of a say in that. Yep. All right. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Darren, Chief Busick. Thank you, guys. Oh, okay.
If I close this, does it go away? Don't close it. All right, I'm gonna set my notes here. Thanks, Cole. As Frank mentioned, my name is Darren Busick. I'm the fire chief for 14 years at McKinsey Fire. And when I was asked to speak on this subject, I said, why me? And why would you pick me, right? But usually my go-to is if I speak any public speaking, I have someone that does this to me if I get out of hand. So I'm looking at Hasina because she's involved with politics, and Frank. So anything I bring up, just go like that and I'll shut it down quick. I have been involved with, and I like to say, I reach out to people that don't get involved. They say, I don't do politics. Well, if you're a fire chief or if you're on a board or you're in any district, you do politics. And how you get involved is your choice. But some of the struggles I had early on was just reading the bill. What does it mean? So I would reach out to somebody else that understands that language and tell me what this really means without having to read 85 pages of script, right? So that's one of my go-tos. I'll ask Frank, I'll ask the OFCA, I'll ask someone that understands what this bill really means and how it's going to impact us or benefit us. The other thing is these guys covered it well on how to reach out, and I'm not an expert on it, and I have my own method, but when you hear things, oh, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't support this, sometimes I'll just reach out and ask why. Why don't you support these kind of things? And they'll say, well, like special districts, we didn't know about special districts. So how can we support something we don't know about? So one thing I did organize, and a lot of this came about, ARPA funds were one of it, but also I happened to be very involved with the Holiday Farm Fire where we lost 400 homes. So there was a major impact there. And you gain relationships during those events, either good or bad. I think I lost my relationship with our commissioners during that event, but I gained my relationships with some of our other stakeholders, and two of them were with Merkley and Wyden's Eugene reps. June and Courtney. We became friends after this, but once she would reach out to ask me things, because I know it's a special district fire, if you want to look at it that way, an Oregon fire, but there was a post office involved in the district above us. And where do you get your mail is a pretty big deal for people, right? When you have to drive 60 miles to your next post office. So once you build that relationship, and June, I think some of you might know her, she was one of those that she would say, Chief, what is going on up there and why isn't it done? So we're like, okay, cool. She speaks my language. So now we can have a good time. So that's a great relationship to have. Unfortunately, she retired to take care of her mom. And then Courtney decided she wanted to start a family. So she retired. So now we're starting over again to build this relationship, and it'll happen, but it just takes time because they don't fill those spots immediately locally. But, invite them up for lunch, do whatever you want, take them for a fire. I took her for a fire truck ride. I gave her, and it wasn't that she begged me for it, but like, hey, I'm going to go tour the district. You want to go? And let's take one of these big, heavy things around. She's like, oh, this is great fun. Of course, she had to honk the horn a few times and whatever else she wants to do. But that goes a long ways. And it's not that you're sucking up to them. I see her, she was more like a friend at some point to me. It wasn't like, and what I like to say is that it's not always supposed to be one-sided. She reached out to me for some help. And then she actually reached out to me as almost like a liaison to the fire as it's burning and things are still on. She would say, what's going on with this? The senator called me and heard this is going on. I'm like, June, that's not true. That building is still in place. That building is still in place. All that's information is just rumors. So I felt comfortable being able to reach out to her and vice versa. And I also say, once you get their cell phone, you kind of know you're in if you don't have to just leave a message, right? So I've lost some of my cell phones over the years, but I'm going to get them back. And then the other thing is some of my other roles I played. and Frank took a trip to us, is I've gone through the ranks of the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association, which means you have to put on your fancy suit and go back to DC a few times, right? And that's you are just a ticket back there. Next, you're almost like at the DMV, right? They have you on a 15-minute, 20-minute schedule. And I think Cole said it best, don't be offended if you talk to a staffer because they're the ones you really want to talk to, in my opinion. Merkley made himself available to us. Wyden kind of gave us the wave on the way by, and we talked to his staff. DeFazio was always good for a photo out in his back porch, but I don't know who got the office now, but it's a great view. But yeah, you learn that you go back there, you are one of many people they're speaking to that day. So don't be offended if they say you're done. So have your plan in place, speak quickly. I think Frank had a chance to mention special districts, what they were. And did you go back again? Yeah. And then you'll go to some big banquet and have the rubber chicken dinner with 5,000 of your closest friends and the whole DC trip. It's an expensive trip, but I think it's worth it. I know that the OFCA goes back once a year and probably a lot of your groups go back to DC for things. Local level, same thing. I had an opportunity to get some decent seats. Well, not decent, they're too far from the field, but I went to a Ducks game in the President's Suite last year, 2 years ago. And Senator Golden was there, and so was Manning. And I didn't bother him other than say thank you for your support on 762 and a few other things. But that opened up the conversation to come back to visit with me on it. So how do you think that's going to go? And then I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's Mariana going to say when I say, well, I don't like this, and I don't like that. But those that know me, I'm okay to kind of speak what I think, but at the same time, careful not to disrupt what's going on, right? Because not everything that's happening you have to believe is going to benefit you, but if it's going to benefit somebody else, then you got to support it in some way. So I'm not going to say reach out to Hasina, reach out to Mark, but reach out to special districts if you have a question about a bill. And going back to meeting, we have a new representative, Cannon, I believe. I'm meeting with him next Friday, and how this started is he reached out to ask if I benefited from the WUI grant and how much and what did I spend the money on, and do I need more? Well, what person asked if you want more money? So like, well, let me tell you how no. But anyways, so we're going to meet. It's just for an hour, but the fact that he's willing to reach out, because I was reaching out, but he actually beat me to it, which is great. And we got realigned as well, so you have to figure out who you need to talk to as well, and their staff. I don't know if DeFazio's staff stayed around. I haven't figured that one out yet or not, but that'll be a new relationship to make. Other thing that happens is I'm also involved with a few other state committees where there's representatives on those states. So that gives me the opportunity to pick on them on a few other things while we're in breaks or when the meeting goes longer than it should. So if you're not involved with some of that stuff and you're not a politician, you are. I'm just not a good one. But you have to be involved with stuff I want to call it the grassroots level, right? These guys over here, Cole, he's the brain trust. He's the one when our county had $2 million and they wouldn't give me any of it. I started crying, and I cry a lot to commissioners, but he sent me some language that said, yes, they can give you the money. And when I presented them with it, they said, well, thank you for this information. It's very valuable, but you're not going to get any money. So I tried, but and no other district benefited either. Mostly nonprofits got the balance, but and the part about educating, the water stuff, that's one of my first things is, even when I get a new resident, well, where'd you come from? LA. Oh, okay. Let me tell you about our district. You might get 2 people within 10 minutes of when you call me to show up on your house fire, and there's no water hydrants anywhere. Oh yeah, I noticed that. So when Frank reached out and Cole reached out, of course I have interest in that because folks see us with this nice river going through the valley, but it doesn't do me a lot of good when it's raging or when it's so low I can't draft out of it. So I don't rely on the river. So my option is to put in more water tanks, and that's what we've been spending our money on. So, but yeah, I guess I would encourage folks to get involved, and if you're not, at least look at your representative's website, see what committees they're on. I know that was mentioned, but it helps me to figure out what they're involved with, and should reach out and see if they have any questions. And if they don't respond, they don't respond, but email is the way to go. I can't think of the last time I mailed a letter. And before I forget, I do want to thank Frank and our representative from Colorado and the other 7 states. Yeah. But when Frank mentioned 30,000, he didn't mention how many states. There's only I said 9 originally. What did you say?
There's 7 states in the first.
Yeah, so only 7 special districts in the United States, basically. So for the efforts they're putting forth, the financial the financial backing they're putting forward this, I think it's going to benefit all of us in the long run. So the only thing I do want to pick on Frank about is how long you been at special districts? Yeah, so it took him 32 years to get this thing going. So he's kind of with that, that's all I really had. So unless there's any questions. And I serve on the trust, so I do his review. It's going to show up next year now that I think about that. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And yes, please give me a good evaluation. I do want to object to something that Darren said, though. He said, I'm not a great politician. No, he is a great politician because he does reach out. He does make those contacts and he speaks with a ton of credibility. When he talks, people know he's being honest. They know that he's not being political. He's just saying the facts and they listen, they respect him. And one thing that he also did, which was great, and I encourage some of you to maybe look into this as well, is he invited Merkley's staff up, Wyden's staff, and DeFazio's staff up for a meeting to learn what a special district was. And he invited Jennifer and I went up there and sat down with Darren, and he has immediate credibility because, again, he's right in the middle of that holiday fire. And so they knew that they needed to listen to him, but it also gave us a great opportunity to attach onto those coattails and be able to talk about special districts in general and give out our brochure and that whole conversation. And so if you want some help on doing something like that, feel free to reach out. Just going to wrap up with a story, I guess, that I've been telling. Every time I meet with congressional offices or legislators, I try to tell them a story about a special district. And I think it really helps tell stories, right? And I think about stories that can really pull on people's heartstrings, that can make them really realize the impact of what happens in your rural communities when you don't get the help and what it means to the actual people that they serve. And one of those stories came to mind with this money that Senator Hayden gave out to his districts, went out to about 20 districts within his congressional area. And he graciously, he didn't know how to allocate the money. So he decided, he wanted to give it actually to SDAO and have SDAO figure out how to allocate it out. And wow, I didn't really want to be in the grant administration business because we've never done that before. So we kind of figured it out. We didn't charge any administration fee for it. We wanted all $2 million to get out there. And I tell you, the things that people ask for, I literally got teary on some of these projects because I'm like, how can it be that these districts are even asking for this stuff? How can it be that they don't have these resources? How can it be that they didn't get any of that ARPA money to do some of these things? And one of those was Scottsburg Fire. Anybody here from Scottsburg Fire? So Scottsburg Fire is very rural, very disadvantaged community that up in the Coast Range. Small station you've probably driven by when you go from Corvallis over to the coast. And little red fire station built probably in the 1940s. Looks like it's ready to fall down. But what they asked for is they said, we need a shower. We need a shower and we need a washer and dryer. And, they were right in the center of the Echo fire and all that. They're all volunteer. They got these firefighters, these brave volunteers. They're out there putting their lives at risk. They're going out fighting fires in their turnouts. We all know that those turnouts get covered in carcinogenic chemicals. They come back to the station. They have no way to take a shower after the fire. They have no way to get cleaned up. They have no way to clean their gear. What do? They take it home. They wash it in their own washer and dryer. They expose their family. The turnouts, they basically pay for themselves almost through donations. That's not right. It's just not right. And that's the type of thing that we want our people that represent us as politicians at the state and local level to really understand that's the type of impact that they make on real people's lives when they don't do the right thing for us. So thank you very much, and please get active.